The sound of the water running upstairs was wrong. It was a full, rushing sound, the tub filling, not the tired drip of the leaky faucet I kept forgetting to fix. And underneath it, a low murmur, a laugh. I stood in the silence of my own kitchen, a carton of soup still cold in my hand, and felt a fault line open somewhere deep in my foundation. The house on Auburn Street held its breath. The little radio murmured about potholes on Riverside. I set the soup down, walked to the bottom of the stairs, and took them one at a time, each step on the worn carpet a lifetime. The bathroom door was half closed. A stripe of light fell across the hall floor. I didn't knock. I turned the knob and opened it. Steam rolled out, smelling of lavender bath salts, Sharon's, and there they were, my wife of 24 years, and her brother-in-law, Dale, crowded into the porcelain tub, knees poking up like pale islands. The world narrowed to the drip of the faucet, the slow curl of steam, the shocking pink of Dale's ears. Sharon gasped, fumbling for the curtain. Dale stared, his mouth a perfect, stupid O. I didn't say a word. I reached in, twisted the faucet handle to silence the running water. The quiet that followed was immense. "Don't go anywhere," I said, my voice so calm it sounded like it belonged to someone else. Then I closed the door. Downstairs, I took off my wedding ring, a small, warm circle of worn gold, and set it on the kitchen counter beside the radio. It made a faint, final click. I then walked to the front door and slid the deadbolt home. The solid thunk echoed in the quiet house. Then I called his wife. "Carol," I said when she answered, "it's Ray. You need to come over now. You need to see this for yourself." I hung up and stood in the middle of the kitchen. The morning's coffee cup sat cold in the sink. The rain speckled the window. My old life was over, and the silence felt heavier than any scream. But to understand how a man gets to that moment, you have to rewind a few hours, to what was supposed to be an ordinary Thursday in Rockford. My name is Ray Collier. I'm 56. I've lived here my whole life. Until that day, I was just another guy riding out the back half. Work, bills, Sunday services at Grace Lutheran, the quiet hope of grandkids someday. That Thursday started like every other. Alarm at 5:30, knees popping as I stood, the smell of Folgers leading me downstairs. Sharon was at the table in her blue robe, scrolling through her phone, sipping from the church mug with the fading green letters. "Morning," I said. "Morning," she replied, not looking up. 24 years distilled into weather reports and the sound of chewing. "You working at the office today?" "Half day," she said. Told Carol I'd help with her paperwork. Dale's supposed to swing by later to look at that faucet. She smiled then, a quick, private thing that vanished as soon as it appeared. A smile I hadn't felt aimed at me in years. "The hall bath? I can get to it this weekend. Dale's already planning to be on this side of town. It's fine, Ray." I let it go. You learn which hills aren't worth dying on. I looked at her across the table and saw the ghost of the girl I'd married at Grace Lutheran, the one with the laugh that filled a room. Now her hair was shorter, threaded with silver. She looked good, but distant, like a ship I'd been watching sail toward a horizon I couldn't reach. By 7 a.m. I was in my truck, heading to the plant. Same route, same job, maintenance supervisor for 15 years. It was steady. Then, around 11, a machine seized with a dying shriek. A part was back-ordered. The manager sent us home. "No point paying folks to stand around," he said. Leaving before lunch felt unnatural. I stopped at Schnucks, picked up tomato soup and bread, a small, sad plan for a quiet lunch together. The wipers squeaked against the Rockford drizzle as I drove home. Our street was unchanged, chain link fences, dormant lawns, the husk of a plastic playset in one yard. I pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, and sat in the sudden quiet. The house was still when I walked in. I set the groceries down. "Sharon?" No answer, just the low mumble of the radio, and then, the sound, water running upstairs, not a drip, a pour, and beneath it, that murmur, that laugh. The cold that went through me then wasn't fire, it was ice, a glacial river finding the cracks. What happened next unfolded with a terrible, slow-motion clarity. The walk upstairs, the stripe of light, the steam, the two figures in the water, the turning off of the faucet, the closed door, the ring on the counter, the deadbolt sliding home. The call. I didn't shout. I didn't throw a punch. At 56, the energy for those movie scenes is gone. You just stand there, watching the picture of your life crack like old paint, and you feel something vital go silent within you. Then, you make one phone call, and you wait for the storm to arrive. I looked at Carol, this woman who'd charged up my stairs like a storm, and saw it clearly now. She wasn't just angry, she was gutted. A betrayal on a level one understood in my bones. "We're not done," Janice said, her voice cool as the diner's laminate table. She flipped open her folder and held up a fragment of paper, its edges charred black, the paper brittle. "This was under your bathroom sink, Ray, in the trash bin." I took it carefully. It was a corner of a greeting card, a birthday card. Maybe. The script was flowing, unmistakably Sharon's. I'll never forget. It read, just like we joked about that summer in Galena. A cold ripple went through me. "We never went to Galena." "No," Carol said, her voice stripped of all warmth. "But Dale and Sharon did. 6 years ago. With my sister's kids." The sour taste of comprehension filled my mouth. The late nights, helping with paperwork. The new lightness in her step. The private smiles. They weren't fragments of a midlife crisis. They were tiles in a mosaic, laid down over years. "How long?" I asked, the words quiet in the hum of the diner. Janice closed the folder with a soft, final click. "Long enough that we don't call it a mistake. We call it a history. And they've been careless. The towel selfie, the bank transfers, this." She gestured to the burnt scrap. "Their carelessness is your leverage." I sat back, letting it settle. 24 years of marriage, dissolving not in a fiery explosion, but in the slow, stupid drip of 1,000 small betrayals. "So what happens now?" Carol leaned forward, her eyes a hardened blue. "We hit them where they live, in their perfect little world." Janice nodded. "There's an event at Grace Lutheran next week, a confirmation party for your nephew." "Caleb," I said, the name feeling foreign. "Perfect. Family, friends, the whole congregation." Janice's gaze was steady. "We present the truth, calmly, legally. Let the community see what's been living underneath the pews." It wasn't the revenge of a younger man, all heat and fists and broken glass. This was colder, quieter. It was the truth, weaponized. "It only works if you're a statue, Ray," Janice said. "Sharon thrives on drama. If you yell, she wins. If you flinch, she spins it." "I won't flinch," I said, and I meant it. The white-hot anger had cooled into a solid, tempered weight in my chest. A man learns to carry weight. As we stood to leave, Carol touched my arm. Her hand was cold. "For what it's worth," she said, her voice rough. "You're not alone in this mess. Not anymore." I just nodded. Sometimes the loudest comfort isn't a hug. It's someone standing in the same wreckage, pointing at the same culprit. The next week passed in the strange, suspended quiet of Lenny's apartment above the auto shop. The nights were long, filled with the distant groan of trucks on North Main and the ghosts of 1,000 ordinary Thursdays. Some nights, grief sat on my chest like an anvil. Other nights, there was just a hollow, echoing calm. But through it all, the plan was my anchor, a straight line drawn through the chaos. Janice called each evening, her voice crisp and procedural. Carol checked in, her fury honed to a sharp, focused point. We were allies forged in the same humiliating fire. By Sunday, I was ready. The confirmation party for Caleb was set for 5 o'clock. That afternoon, the Rockford sky turned a gentle, untroubled blue. I dressed simply, clean jeans, a pressed shirt, my good boots. Not a man trying to prove anything, just a man showing up. The church hall parking lot was full of minivans and sedans. The air smelled of potluck and perfume. I stood for a moment by my truck, breathing in the calm. My heart wasn't pounding. It was beating slow and heavy, like a drum before a march. Inside, the hall was a blur of blue balloons and paper tablecloths. The scent of baked ham and marshmallow salad hung in the air. I saw them immediately. Sharon, near the punch bowl, laughing with a woman from the benevolence committee, wearing a dress I didn't recognize. Dale beside her, looking polished and painfully ordinary. His smile died when he saw me. Sharon's face froze, her eyes widening in a silent, panicked "What is he doing here?" I didn't react. I just walked in, a man entering his own past. Carol met me with a tight nod. Janice was at her shoulder, a leather folder held against her chest like a shield. You remember the script, Janice said, not a question. Let the truth do the shouting, I recited softly. Pastor Mike called everyone together for a blessing. The room shuffled forward, a sea of polite attention. As he began to speak, Carol stepped clear of the crowd. Pastor, she said, her voice slicing through the prayerful quiet, before you continue, there's a matter of truth that needs addressing. A ripple of confusion. Sharon's face went pale. Carol, not here. This is Caleb's day. Truth doesn't pick a convenient time, Carol said, and she held up the first sheet from Janice's folder. It was the photograph, the one from the bathroom. Steam and shock and shame preserved in stark relief. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. A plate clattered. Sharon lunged. But Janice was already presenting the next page, bank statements. The transfers highlighted in yellow. A trail of financial deceit leading straight from my account to Dale's. This shows a pattern, Janice announced, her voice calm and carrying. A long-term, deliberate pattern of deception. Then came the burnt card fragment, passed hand to hand until it reached Pastor Mike. He read it, his shoulders sagging. Dale found his voice, a strangled warble. This is a misunderstanding, the only thing misunderstood. Carol cut in, her voice trembling not with weakness, but with contained fury. Was my trust, and raise. That's when Dale broke. Panic did what reason could not. He lunged, not for us, but for the folder in Janice's hands, desperate to stop the next page, the next truth. He forgot about the large, wobbling bowl of crimson jello salad on the corner of the buffet table. His hip caught the edge, the bowl teetered, then sailed. Dale Harper, deacon and handyman, went down in a spectacular, silent movie pratfall, landing flat on his back, covered in a glistening, red slick shroud of whipped cream and cherry gelatin. For a second, there was only the shocking, surreal silence of the crash. Then, from the front row, old Mrs. Jensen squinted and said to no one in particular, "Well, the truth is certainly sticky." A snort of shocked laughter escaped someone, then another. The tension didn't break, it shattered. In the center of the ruin, Sharon started to cry, big, dramatic tears. "Ray, how could you humiliate me like this in front of everyone?" I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt no pull, no hook in my heart, just a clear, cold distance. "Sharon," I said, and my voice was so quiet the room strained to hear. "I didn't humiliate you. You built your own altar. I just showed everyone what you were worshipping there." The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a verdict being understood by an entire room. As if on cue, a sheriff's deputy, a cousin of Carol's, moved through the crowd and handed Dale a manila envelope. "Financial fraud investigation. Mr. Harper, you'll want to contact your lawyer." Dale, wiping jello from his eyes, looked less like a villain and more like a lost, sticky child. I didn't stay for the aftermath. I turned and walked out, the heavy door of the church hall shutting behind me with a soft, final sigh. Outside, the evening air was cool and clean. The sky was streaked with the first hints of peach and purple. I leaned against my truck and took a deep, shaking breath. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, cleansed. The rope that had been cinched around my lungs for years had finally been cut. The muffled uproar from the hall faded into the rustle of oak leaves. It was no longer my business. I was free. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I moved back into the house on Auburn Street. It was quieter, the air different. It was mine. One afternoon, I found that pink floral towel, Dale's shroud, still wadded in the back of the linen closet. I didn't burn it. I folded it neatly, drove it to the donation bin, and dropped it in. Let it become a rag in someone else's garage, a story with no connection to me. Life became small, and simple, and mine. I learned to cook a decent meatloaf. I brought a slice to old Mr. Jenkins next door. We sat on his porch and talked about the bears and the coming winter. It was the first of many talks. Tonight, as I sit at my own kitchen table, the sunset paints the walls a gentle gold. I pick up my old wedding ring from the windowsill where I'd left it. I turn the cool, worn band in my fingers. It holds no power now. It's just a piece of metal, a souvenir from a country I no longer live in. I set it down, The window is open, and the smell of rain on warm pavement drifts in. A neighbor is grilling. A dog barks down the block. Life, ordinary and persistent, goes on. Starting over at 56 isn't a tragedy. It's not a fresh start either, you carry all the years with you. But it can be an honest start. And sometimes, after a long season of living someone else's lie, an honest day is the most profound victory of all.